Hello, welcome back to my floor. We're gonna do this real quick today because I have places to be, things to do. I'm filming and then going to edit this in my 2 days off. So we will see how this goes. Today is the first half of a 2-part video I'm gonna do covering a book series. Get excited. I will just be recapping the plots of the book series and then at the end of the second video I give my opinion. Obviously I like it because I read them all when I was a kid. I have not read them since. I will be using the Wikipedia recaps to structure this because I am nothing if not academic. I'm nothing if not academic. So yeah, the book series we're going to be talking about today is called, the name of this book is Secret. They were written by Hieronymus Bosch, spelled however I popped it up on screen, which is like a fake name created as like part of the series by an author who does other books. It's Raphael Simon, not Simon, there's no, it could be Simon or Simon, but he created this fake name as like part of the book series, as part of the marketing, because like part of the thing of the series is like every character is given a pseudonym. But these books came out between 2008 and 2011, and there are 5 of them. So we're gonna do the first 3 in this video, the last 2 in the next video. And the important thing to note is that Bosch will show up as like a narrator throughout the books. He's very present. He is not one of the characters in the actual story, but he comes in and out. So there might be times where like, and then Bosch says he's not physically there, just doing narrator things. Good for him. So let's just let's hop into it. Book 1 is, the name of this book is Secret. Also, you will notice a theme with all of these books. Each book is about one of the 5 senses. It's something that they will get into in the stories. So book 1 is, the name of this book is Secret. We start with our main girl, Cassandra, also called Cass. She is working for her uncle, not her uncle. I can read. We start with Cass, who's our main character. She is like 11 and a survivalist. Good to know. Every main character in this book is like 11. So fun. And she works at her grandfather's antique store called Fire Sale, when a real estate agent named Gloria Fortune leaves a box labeled Symphony of Smells because she has been cleaning out a house. This Symphony of Smells, Cass takes to school the next day with her, right? And she is like in the schoolyard during like recess or whatever, looking at a dead rat, when she meets Max Ernest. His name is Max-Ernest, who, quote, talks too much, loves jokes, and has divorced parents. That's what you need to know about Max. He tries one of his jokes. She tells him it doesn't make sense. This fosters their entire friendship. That's the basis for it. She then shows him the Symphony of Smells, and they find a little message in it that they end up decoding. And what's important to know about the Symphony of Smells is that it came from a magician's house. Now this man has died, and his name is Petro Bergamo. Name on screen because I can't read. So they're like, we decoded this message. Let's root around the man's house. Let's go in. Let's have a little look around. So it is important that the message is like a thing for help. They're calling for help. Maybe important to why they're going to this house, but they're like, let's go. We're 11. We have nothing better to do. But they go to basically to find out why he wanted help. And in this house, they find a secret study and a mysterious journal, which they take. But as they're in the house, Gloria, real estate agent, comes in with a young couple, a Miss Marvelous and a Dr. L, who are looking for a house, but it is like very clear that they are only there to get the magician's journal. And as the kids are sneaking out with it, they're spotted and they're like forced to kind of run. But they keep the journal. Yay! When they get home, they find a riddle on the first page, and the rest of the journal is empty. So Cass and Max read a story and discover like that the magician had a brother, Lucinda, who was stolen. Oh, I skipped. Oopsies, going back. So they find that riddle on the first page. Cass solves it on the way to school because she's apparently good at these things. And they discover that like the entire story in this journal is written on double-layered pages. So they start reading it. They find out he has a brother, him being the magician. Petro has a brother, Luciano, who was stolen by a blonde woman with a voice like ice when they were children. Petro and Luciano were in a synesthetic circus, and they used their senses in their magic act. Again, synesthesia is like the thing where it's like you listen to music and you see colors. It's like that kind of thing. Where am I? So they used that in their magic acts. Petro believed that the Golden Lady, which is what he called the blonde woman who stole his brother, was kidnapping kids who had synesthesia, and after discovering that a young Chinese violinist with the same condition was kidnapped years later by the same woman. So Cass goes, Golden Lady, Miss Marvelous, obviously. But Ernest is like, no, she was far too young. She couldn't have been born when this story happened, because these magicians, I think, are supposed to be like, probably like 60s to 70s now. So this all happens as a child has been kidnapped from their school. So at their school, a kid named Benjamin Blake has disappeared. Cass and Ernest believes it was Dr. L and Miss Marvelous who took the boy because they saw them earlier inquiring to his art teacher about him. This was 2008. This story is like, I think, implied to be in the US. How are random adults getting into the school? But she also, when she saw them inquiring about his work, so they left in a limousine with the words Midnight Sun, Sensatorium, and Spa painted on them. But this leads to Cass and Max fighting for some reason. And they decide they're not going to investigate. And Cass is like, well, if you're not, I still am. And goes off on her own. So she goes home, looks through all these spa brochures her mom has, finds one for the spa, and goes, how do I get in? I'm gonna try. I'll pose as one of these famous pop singers. They're called the Skelton Sisters. And they're twins. So after doing this, she's driven to the spa and then is introduced to a man named Owen. He's a stuttering butler that I guess everybody gets a butler at the spa. And then after going through several spa treatments, she goes looking for Benjamin and ends up in Miss Marvelous' office, where she is told that there will be a surprise guest coming for dinner, and that is Max. Max will be coming to dinner. He's coming to save Cass. Reminder, they're 11. So Miss Marvelous demands to be given the magician's journal, And as they're like fighting, there's a commotion, and her glove is ripped off and reveals an ancient-looking hand. And at this point, I guess Max is there, and they realize that all of the Midnight Sun members, all the people at the spa, are like extremely old, and they learn that they are alchemists on a search for the secret. That's all it's called, the secret, which they believe will give them immortality. They also conclude that Dr. L is Luciano, the original magician's long lost brother, and after all of this is revealed, they're locked in a room. Cass and Max are locked in their room, and Owen comes in and reveals himself as a spy, and unties the children to help them. They then go into a pyramid in the center of this spa, through a secret tunnel in Mavis's office, and they see that Dr. L and Mavis are about to remove Benjamin's brain in front of hundreds of other adults that are just gonna let this happen. They then distract Dr. L by using vials from the Symphony of Smells to spell out the word help, convincing Dr. L that Petro has come for him. However, as Dr. L begins to run up the pyramid, the kids are like, oh no, he's gonna come see us. He's gonna find us. Because they're 11. And what do? They throw down a rope down the hole in the top of the pyramid and climb down. After which the rope catches fire, because of course it does. And they are forced to go out a different path of escape before the spa burns down. They do manage to save up Benjamin and are driven home by Owen. Sometime later, we're not sure how much, Gloria, the real estate agent, delivers another box to the fire sale. This box contains gadgets for each of the kids, a backpack for Cass, and a decoder disguised as a Game Boy for Max Ernest. And that is the conclusion of the first book, Wild. So moving right along, the second book is called If You're Reading This, It's Too Late. So it starts with a bit of backstory on the plot for this book. So for 500 years, the secret society of the Midnight Sun has been waiting for the homunculus, the man-made man, to rise. So a homunculus, very much like Frankenstein's monster, is just a man made by a man. And now Dr. L and Miss Mavis are going to throw Cass and Max to the sharks unless they tell him where he resides. I have no doubt that these might be implied to be real sharks within the story. So that is the background plot for what's going to happen in this book. So we start with Cass and Max going on a trip with their science teacher, where they receive a note, and they're it's hey, this is Petro, come meet me, whatever. And they go, and they realize it's a trap, where Dr. L basically tells them everything we just learned in the backstory of, they want them to deliver the homunculus, and he sent the note saying he was Petro, obviously. So the kids barely escape from this ship, after which they learn the science teacher they're with is Owen. And Owen goes, you got me. So he is the ancient changing member of the Traces Society. And then they meet Petro himself. Petro's not, dead or anything. He just went missing. He's here now. And he gives them a mission. Because who better to do everything for this society of adults than a pair of 11-year-olds? And they, the mission is, exactly what Dr. L was I want you to do this. He's go find the homunculus before, Midnight Sun does. And then, because they're 11, Max then goes, oh, Traces is secrets spelled backwards. Okay. And then when Cass gets home, she is grounded because she was missing for a very long time. while they were on this ship, before they like escaped and learned all these things, Cass and Max discovered a strange ball called the Sound Prism, which enables Cass to hear all types of sounds by putting it to her ear, and makes wonderful music when thrown into the air. Cass has also discovered a birth certificate, but the name is unrecognizable, and this has something to do with so Cass discovers a birth certificate. Sorry, I was reading. And this makes her go like, oh, when we were like, after she's thinking about this post, finding it, and after talking to Traces, she goes, oh, I wonder, like, am I really the girl they wanted, or is like that the girl they wanted? And then she ignores it, basically, to like be able to continue on her mission. She later finds out that she is adopted and was left on her grandfather's doorstep in a box. Thrilling. So they end up teaming up with their other classmate who's new. His name is Yoji. He prefers to be called Yo-Yoji. I am probably just going to be calling him Yoji. And the three basically need to escape the grass of their parents to find the alchemist's grave. So what do? Cass convinces her grandparents to take her, Max, and Yoji camping so they can go find this homunculus. And they do that. They do exactly that. They find it, and they take it back to Trace's headquarters. But it runs away when it finds out that the headquarters doesn't have good food. Fair and valid. So, while all that is going on, Amber, a different classmate, who's not like super relevant to the story, meets the Skeleton Sisters, those pop stars. And it is revealed that they are members of the Midnight Sun, basically, and they ask her to like do a little work for them. And so later, Amber is hidden in Cass's bushes, and like Cass like kind of hears noises, but decides to go out later and play with the Sound Prism. Because she thinks it's Mr. Cabbage Face, which is what they've named the homunculus, by the way, Mr. Cabbage Face. Because I guess the prism emitted a sound that like attracted Mr. Cabbage Face the first time. So as she's doing this, Amber records the song from the Sound Prism, and then later gives it to the Skeleton Sisters. They go and they play it at a concert they're having, and they end up trapping both the homunculus in Cass. So after this, they end up back near the lake they had been camping by, called Whisper Lake, and the Midnight Sun is there because Lord Pharaoh's, who's the man who created Mr. Cabbage Face, his grave is over there, with all of his alchemist things. That is exactly how it is phrased, his alchemist things. Which is what Mavis and Dr. O want in order to help them receive immortality. The Midnight Sun and Trace's society members end up fighting to get Cass and Mr. Cabbage Face back. While that's happening, Max and Yoji are up in the mountain with the Sound Prism and a whip. And this is the most 11-year-old boy thing they could have ever done. They're like, let's create a sonic boom and create an avalanche that'll fall onto both the Midnight Sun and seal the coffin into the ground so that nobody can access it easily. Like, heavy-duty equipment doesn't exist, but whatever. So they managed to do this, and a huge boulder falls. And this frees Cass and Mr. Cabbage Face. They are trying to put the coffin back into the grave, but as they're doing this, Mr. Cabbage Face screams at Cass to like get out of the way because the boulder's coming down. He ends up having to push her, and then he gets crushed into the ground with the coffin, thus dying, and also being sealed with his maker in that grave forever. the Midnight Sun members basically disperse, but not before Dr. L can have like a weirdly nice little chat with his brother. Like that's just happening now. And then at the end, Max, Cass, and Yoji take the oath of the Traces. Terces? Have I been saying it wrong? Terces? Created by the Jester. Who was the homunculus's only friend 500 years ago, and Cass's real great-great-great-great-great-grandfather, however many greats you need to get back 500 years. And that is the end of book 2. So we've done smell, we've done sound, and up next we have taste. So the third book is, this book is not good for you. Trying to be 8 and ask for these books in libraries was insane. So much like the prior book, we start not with our main characters. This one starts with a young girl named Simone, who is from Africa, and she is tasting a piece of chocolate for the Midnight Sun. And this is important because Simone is a super taster, and is able to just distinguish between almost any food, no matter how similar they are. And immediately after tasting this chocolate, she blacks out. Hard cut to Max, Yoji, and Cass. They're searching for the box that Cass was found in as a baby, and because she wants to find out more about who she was. While they search, they find a box filled with magazines that was dropped off at the front door of Cass's grandfather's old abandoned fire station. I think they live in a fire station. I think that's part of the plot. And Max points out a magazine with a picture of the Skeleton Sisters on the cover, basically solidifying that they are kind of immortal and members of the Midnight Sun. But like, I guess the magazines are newer, and so they're like reading the story, and they find out that these girls are working with Miss Mavis, who is a French woman. We've learned, and they are and apparently the Midnight Sun's headquarters are in the country of the Ivory Coast, or Côte d'Ivoire, I think is how you would say it. I cannot read French, not my strong suit. Basically, where they take orphans and take care of orphans, and they work on a chocolate plantation. So after learning this, Cass and Max are like, let's go to the old circus where the society basically resides. And the society is made up, outside of these 3 kids, of Petro, the magician, Mr. Wallace, who is an accountant and works as the society's archivist, Lily, who is a Chinese violinist who escaped the Midnight Sun and is now head of physical defense and martial arts, and Owen, who is an actor who appears as many different people throughout the series and is also a spy for the society. So if I said 3, it was 4. Don't remember what I said. But yeah, that is the entirety of society. The society. 4 adults and 3 children. Good. And they basically show up and they're like, hey, we found where the Midnight Sun is. And after like explaining the thing with chocolate, Mr. Wallace goes, ugh, the tuning fork must be involved with what they're doing and this chocolate. Later, that's all we hear about the tuning fork. Don't worry, it'll come up later. But later, Cass is talking with her mother, Melanie, and they sign up for, they're like signed up for okay, I can't read. So later, Cass and her mother, Melanie, are speaking, and they're in a cooking class run by the famous blind chef, Senor Hugo. And after bringing up the subject of the tuning fork, Cass is invited to Hugo's famous restaurant with her mother, Max Ernest, and other friend, Yoji. So at this restaurant, the kids discover that it is extremely dark to the point where no one can see anything. Since Hugo wants diners' other senses, especially taste, to be heightened during their meal, so basically making them blind. But after trying many different foods, Cass soon realizes that her mother is gone. After going outside to try to find her, she reads a note that is given to her from Senor Hugo by a waiter, basically, which is like, you asked about the tuning fork, you must have it, give it, or like, I will, and then I'll give you back your mom. Okay, fine. So later they're at the fire station searching for the tuning fork, because of course that's where it would be. Why wouldn't it be there? But they're talking about what they were told earlier, whereas like Mr. Wallace was like, yeah, the fork was originally possessed by the Aztec boy who was called Caca like Coco, and it would have probably ended up in a junk shop, which is why I think it is at her grandfather's store. But while searching, Cass finds the box that she was dropped off in by Mr. Wallace, and then see on television that the kid's principal from their school, Miss Johnson, is in possession of the tuning fork. Why are they talking about this on the news? I don't know. So the three of them go to her house and basically find out that she drinks, smokes, and gambles. Which are all things she tells them not to do in school. No, wait, it's drinking, smoking, and recycling. She doesn't recycle. Like, I'm like, so the kids go to her house, and they find out that she gambles, smokes, and doesn't recycle. 3 things she tells them to do in school. And they're basically like, yeah, I see how it is. We will tell everybody you do this if you do not give us the tuning fork. They blackmail the principal. These kids are 11. They're 11. But they blackmail the principal into getting the fork. And then Senor Hugo just shows up at Cass's house for her to give it to him. And thus he reveals that he is part of the Midnight Sun, and will not give her back her mother. And then she goes, hey guys, so you know how I said I maybe wouldn't give him the fork because she like told him that earlier? I did it. Well, all of this is happening. Simone, girl from the very start, wakes up and finds Melanie in her cell. And then Melanie's basically like, hey, it's gonna be okay, comforts her, whatever. And she's like, yeah, your parents must have really loved you for that. They thought it was better to send you here to what she assumes is the plantation. And she's like, your parents must have really cared about you if they didn't want you to suffer. And then Melanie is called to the tasting room, and Simone goes, don't eat the chocolate. So go back to the kids. They're at Yoji's house, and they're looking at pictures of the Midnight Sun at the plantation, and they're looking for clues. And then they go, that's weird. There's signs that say don't feed up. And that bird's from America, not from Africa. They're in a zoo. They're hiding in a zoo. So they basically they're located inside an artificial rainforest part of a zoo in this town they're in, because again, they don't tell us where they are. And after taking a train to the park where the zoo is, the kids camp there, basically. And are A, nearly eaten by a lion, and B, shown the location of the plantation by a capuchin monkey. Okay. So, they're hiding in the cacao trees. and they witness Miss Mavis talking to an elderly man, Itmar, who, and during this, they discover that her first name is Antoinette, and they then find the they then go to the building called the Pavilion, where they find the tasting room. They find 3 pieces of chocolate on the table, which is a trap. But Cass and Yoji are both like, I'm gonna eat it. And Max goes, you have fun with that. I'm gonna sit over here and continue assuming I am allergic to chocolate, because that's like a thing for him. And then he watches them fall into trances, and Cass has a dream about her and the jester. And their conversation is about the secret, but when Cass wakes up, Mavis, Dr. L, and Senor Hugo are like, tell us the secret, because they think the chocolate took her back in time to see the jester, which kind of, yes. And he told her the secret, definitely, also probably yes. And then Cass just sits there and goes, I don't remember what it was, because that's the truth. And they take her away to go to Simone's cell. Yoji, at this point, has disappeared, and Max is the only one who can rescue everybody. Second book, Max has had to be the rescuer. Technically third if you count him and Yoji teaming up in the second book. But Max eventually catches up and finds Yoji, who is in a trance that makes him believe he's an ancient samurai warrior, and Max is basically able to control him and command him to rescue Cass, her mother, and Simone. And then the kids go to get the tuning fork back from Hugo and rescue the orphans, who, fun fact, were made slaves by the Midnight Sun. So when they go get back the tuning fork, they rescue all the orphans and they all escape. Everyone escapes. So, very end of the book, they're at Cass's house, and Max and Cass are like, okay, let's use the tuning fork to like get Yoji back. And they do that, and like he just returns to himself, because I guess the tuning fork does that, I don't know. And we basically end with Cass getting told by Petro that she's now the secret keeper, even though she doesn't know what the secret is. Max tells Cass that his parents are back together, and basically he finds out he isn't allergic to chocolate. And then the last thing that happens is Cass eats a piece of chocolate that was made for her by Hugo and falls into yet another trance. And that is where we leave at the end of book 3. So, those are the first 3 books. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you had a good time. I hope it wasn't too confusing. And we will get to the next 2 next time. That is all I have for you today. I am a little sorry for the lack of eye contact, but also I'm not memorizing all of that. We should know that by now. That's all I have. Great chat. And I will see you next time. Okay, bye.